Good evening and welcome to Arizona Illustrated for Thursday, the 21st of June, 2012. Mexican voters will go to the polls to elect a new president on Sunday, July 1st, and the violence caused by rival drug cartels could influence the vote. Tonight, we bring you a story about a Texas artist who brings the drug war to life. This segment comes to us from reporter Peter O'Dowd from KAET, our sister television station in Phoenix. We would like to warn you that some viewers may find some of these images disturbing.
Well, my name's Rigoberto Gonzalez. I was born in Reynosa, just across the border from McAllen, Texas. And I came here when I was 9 years old. I would consider myself a figurative painter, and I do narratives, stories. The artwork that I've always admired, from the Renaissance and the Baroque period, those paintings tell stories. This body of work, dealing with the violence in Mexico, I started, I think the first painting that I did, it was a small severed head, a little, like 20 by 18. The head is life-size. It's probably like in 2007. Because at that time, that's when it was started to be more on the news. And because of my interest in Baroque art, I couldn't help but connected with, like paintings of the head of John the Baptist and, the head of Goliath. And the stories, they can be stories that I hear on the news, that I read on the newspaper, that I hear on the radio, or stories that people tell me of things that have happened to them. There was a photo from the newspapers in Reynosa. There was a lady whose son had been killed by crossfire. And the composition was just like a Pietà from Renaissance. And you look at the armor of the Mexican Federal Police. It's as impressive as the armor of the Roman soldiers. For some reason, I've always had this interest in doing things that are terrible and beautiful. It does give me angst, but I think that's what great art really should inspire. There has been reluctance in some places to show the work because of the negative, you could say negative stories that I'm telling. But my hope is that it has like a cathartic quality to it. You can't keep suppressing it, and I want you to talk about it. You show the work, it engages the public, starts a discussion, starts a dialogue. So that's really, that in a way, it's really what my work's about, starting a dialogue and maybe start like a healing process for them. It's a Holocaust. And one thing that really strikes me also is when you see the man, when they're captured, the people that are responsible, like the heads of the cartels and the hitmen, and I look at them, and I'm like, that looks like my cousin, or looks like my brother. That could be me. That similarity really scares me. But there are other stories, there's incredible amount of dramatic quality to the stories of, people leaving, like this one here, it's, people crossing the river, they're coming from Ciudad Juarez into El Paso. There's an incredible, love of family, people risking their lives to better care for their families. I think we hear a lot of sound bites on the news, and as an artist, I'm trying to do my part to expand upon those, sound bites.
We continue the conversation about the upcoming elections in Mexico with Dolores Duran Cerda. She is the acting assistant vice chancellor at Pima Community College and a former faculty member in the World Languages Department. Dolores, thanks for being here.
Thank you very much for inviting me to be here.
Great. So let me ask you this. Why are you following these elections? We were talking just ahead of this interview. Mm-hmm. For one, we live in Arizona, and you think that this is an important matter for all of us, right?
Absolutely, because Mexico is our neighbors to the south, and we have many people in the community who are very interested in what's going on and have relatives that are interested in perhaps still living in Mexico. And also, as an educator, I teach Spanish language and literature and culture, and learning a language is not just having to do with the grammar and the structure and the accents and things like that, but it also has to do with the culture and the people and what the perspectives are in the country.
And of course, here in the United States, we have our own presidential election coming up. We always hear about two parties, two main parties, the Democrats, the Republicans. Mexico is broken down into three main parties. Let's begin with the first one, PRI, the PRI. What do you want to tell us about that and the candidate?
Sure. The PRI stands for Institutional Revolutionary Party. And this party has been in power for many years in the past, for about 71 years. And it came because of the Mexican Revolution. But right now, the front runner, the candidate right now, his name is Enrique Peña Nieto. And he's a young candidate, and he was the former governor of the state of Mexico. And so he's the fresh face and probably representing a new phase of the PRI.
And then we also have the PAN. Now, this is interesting because the present president, Felipe Calderón, is from the PAN member. And PAN, if elected, would have its first female Mexico would have its first female president. Tell us about that person, please.
Yes, that's correct. PAN stands for National Action Party, and this began in 1939 as opposition to the PRI. And as you said, the candidate right now, her name is Josefina Vázquez Mota, and she is the first woman presidential candidate ever to run. And she does follow in the footsteps of the current president, Felipe Calderón. She was the former PAN leader in the House of Congress in Mexico.
And then, of course, we have the PRD, PRD. What is that party all about, and what about its candidate?
Okay. The PRD stands for Party of the Democratic Revolution, and this one began later in 1986. It actually branched off of the PRI. And these people that started off the PRD are more leaning towards the left. The former two that we talked about, the parties, they're more center-right or right, and this one is left. And the candidate for this party is Andrés Manuel López Obrador, and he was the former mayor of Mexico City.
And how does it look like right now, at least according to recent polls, as far as who might win this election?
Well, right now, there are two major candidates that are kind of head-to-head, and that's the first one, number one, he has, I believe, 42% in favor, is the PRI candidate, and that's Enrique Peña Nieto. And the one right after him is the PRD candidate, and that's Andrés Manuel López Obrador, and he has 30% in the poll ratings. And the third candidate is the PRI candidate with 24% in her favor, and that's Josefina Vázquez Mota.
The PAN candidate in that
Yes,
case.
yeah, the
I
PAN
know,
candidate.
PAN, no problem.
A lot of P's.
And so what are some of the main issues for Mexico? Because I know here in the U.S. everybody's talking about the economy, but that's not the issue in Mexico.
Right. The main issue, I mean, the economy is part of it, but the main issue right now is crime and the drug wars. Since 2006, there have been 55,000 deaths related to crime and drugs. So that is the main concern of the Mexican people. Of course, there's the economic security. There's been more poverty now recently. I read an article where there's perhaps half of the Mexican population is under the poverty level, earning about $150 a month. So this is a major thing. And a lot of them are fearing also the crime, the war on drugs.
Okay, and we don't have much time, but if you could tell us a bit about how the internet is playing a role in this election, just like we have heard with Arab Spring in other countries.
Absolutely, yes. Something recently developed in May. On May 11th, the PRI candidate, Enrique Peña Nieto, went to the Universidad Iberoamericana to talk to students, and there was a protest, and a lot of the students think that perhaps he was manufactured, like maybe a puppet or manufactured by a major network in Mexico. And so they started a group called Yo Soy 132. I am number 132. There were 131 students at the protest, and 132 would mean everybody else in solidarity. So they did a video, and it went on YouTube and went viral. So the social media is playing something very important in this election as well. So we'll see what happens on July 1st.
Okay, well, thank you very much for joining us and giving us a little bit of that information.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
The real West of Arizona, exemplified by hard work, a strong attitude, and ranching, is captured in a collection of dozens of photographs that you can enjoy right now in the Tucson Museum of Art. The traveling exhibit in our state is called 100 Years, 100 Ranchers, And Luis Carrion has a preview.
This was one of the last families I photographed, and I didn't get to go up and visit them first.
The mythos of the American West has served as inspiration for a great number of artists. And now a new exhibit titled 100 Years, 100 Ranchers, photographs by Scott Baxter, reveals in detail the people that have created the mythic ranching legacy of Arizona.
It really is changing, kind of drastically in some senses. I just saw Fred Davis.
Scott Baxter was a commercial photographer before he took on the 10-year project of photographing 100 Arizona ranchers. The project is on exhibit at the Tucson Museum of Art, and it coincides with the culmination of the centennial celebration of Arizona's statehood.
My whole point was that it's obviously a photographic project, but I was more interested in kind of honoring these families and getting some sort of photographic documentation of some of these families down.
Baxter says a big part of the 10-year project involved spending time with the families, simply getting to know them and some of the details of their day-to-day existence on the land. This, he says, allowed him to approach each portrait with a more intuitive sense and a personal connection with the subject matter.
Kind of wing it a lot of times. And it's not that I'm sloppy or I'm unprepared, but I don't go in with a rigid set of rules, and I don't go in saying, I'm going to photograph this guy against this wall. I mean, I kind of move and kind of, the whole point for me with these people is that it's less about the technique, and I know what good light is, and I know how to expose my film, but it's more about the person. So it's more important for me to get that person comfortable. I spend hours talking to them. Even 70% of these people I drove to their ranches, sometimes as far as 4.5, 5 hours, without a camera, just to go visit them and have lunch. It's a lot of legwork, and it's a lot of prep work on the front end before you take the photograph. I said, just go saddle the horse. So literally, he went into the shed, he grabbed the blanket, and he walked out.
We are so excited about having these photos of the real people of the West, not your stereotypical ranchers or cowboys that people may associate with Westerners, but those who really work the land.
Christine Brinza is TMA's Curator of Art of the American West. She says Baxter's photographs present a unique opportunity to see photographic images that are rooted in the Western art tradition.
Today we think of artists like Maynard Dixon and other artists that have come out west and painted or sculpted the West to be those who can really tell the story about how the people, the land, really capture our imaginations. And that's actually the essence of Western art, I think, is that it's about that storytelling. It's about how artists depict those different stories from those experiences of the West. So this exhibition, it's photographs, it's not paintings or drawings, but it still captures your imagination about what's real, what's mythic, what comes from the imagination.
What does come from our collective imagination when we think of the West? This question can be a rich source of material for artists. And Brinza says these photographs reveal an intimate connection between the artist and the subject.
Whether you were in southeastern...
Someone like Scott Baxter, who went to each individual ranch and sat down with that person, got to know that person, and found that spark between them, really, it matters a lot compared to someone who may just point and shoot, so to speak, with their camera. And it's the same way with other forms of art. It takes this immersion into that particular subject matter to be able to convey your own personal thoughts, emotions, convictions through those images.
And we were having dinner before I left. They fed me, and we were saying grace and holding hands. And the first thing Bert did was he prayed for rain, which they all did, but he then prayed for my safe travels.
Baxter says this project has changed the way he thinks, and his goal is to recognize these families that have struggled to survive and persevere through difficult times. He also says he hopes to be able to preserve photographically an integral part of the Arizona ranching tradition.
It's changed my life, and not photographically. It changed my life as far as how I operate as a person. So this was more than just running out and taking pictures.
I think the fun of driving on any historic highway, especially the Lincoln Highway, is the sense of what am I going to see this time? It's the journey, not the destination, in so many ways when we travel our old highways.
Thursday at 8 on PBS HD, Arizona Public Media.
For many children, playing in a school band is an important rite of passage. But kids who are more interested in participating in a rock band after school often have to learn the ropes on their own. However, there is a studio right across the street from Tucson High School that provides this musical opportunity. Mark McLemore takes us to the Schoolhouse of Rock.
Rock is fun. Who doesn't have fun getting on stage, playing rock music, or watching rock music? I guess that's the biggest part of what we do that makes us different, is that this is not about instilling the classical values of music. This is about having a good time playing music, because music is therapeutic. So we want our students to come in and have a great time, and that's why it's called the Schoolhouse of Rock.
He said you gotta get a hold on yourself.
My name is Sarah Fire,
True, but I've got
and I teach piano, guitar, voice,
the cliched way.
beginning drums. I teach bass guitar. I've been teaching for 13 years. I started when I was 16. My piano teacher gave me some of her students, and I've taught on and off for 13 years.
Good job.
Our philosophy is that you can sit in your room for 6 years and become the greatest guitar player, but if you don't play with other musicians, you're really not going to know what it means to be a guitar player. Almost immediately, we have our students get used to playing with other musicians, and that's a great confidence booster, and it's a really great reality check too. It also makes our instructors actually want to be here. I don't know of a lot of jobs you can have that you actually feel better when you get there. This is the kind of job you love.
Teaching has been an incredible experience. I had never done anything like this until a couple of years ago. I started here at the schoolhouse, and it has completely revamped my love of music, and has, every day I go home and I want to get better and learn something new and or find a new way to teach something to a student. And it's the thrill of seeing somebody pick up a guitar who's never played it before, and by the end of their lesson they head out and they're able to strum a few chords is just, that's very overwhelming, very powerful.
I'm sure you've heard it all before, but
So you're going to get a one-on-one experience, which is great. You get the full attention of a teacher. A student that we have who has cerebral palsy, at first when he started taking lessons, it was a bit of a struggle. After a couple weeks, I started to notice that he had a good ear. And then after a couple months, I started to notice that he was a really, really good musician for his age. And then I saw what his fine motor skills were like doing something else. And I couldn't believe how hard it was for him to do something that other 12-year-olds can do. And that when he sits down at the piano, it's beautiful. Seeing that and seeing that he was really getting something out of this, and seeing the parents get to see their kid be really good at something after a lot of struggle, it's unbelievable to watch that.
It's very fun and active, and the music is nice.
A lot of the kids that come here, I really start to notice that they are sort of starved for self-expression, that they are stifled in their environment at school, or afraid of expressing themselves, afraid that other people are going to shoot them down or criticize them. And we try to create an environment here where they are able to write their own music, write their own lyrics, and express themselves in a creative way, because they're cutting funding for arts education in school. And, indisputably, they've proven that studying music is a way to increase scholastic aptitude, and nobody's arguing about that. They're arguing about funding.
Next, Damian Klinko joins us with his weekly segment about some of the architectural and cultural treasures of our region.
In 2010, Pima County invested $953,000 into the renovation of the Roy Place building on the corner of Pennington and Stone Avenues. Phase 1 of the project was funded through county bonds approved in 2004 and represents a community commitment to our city's architectural legacy. The building is steeped in the historical narratives of both the architect who designed it and a town constructing monumental works to celebrate a sense of place as a great American city. Roy Place designed the building in 1929 at the height of his career and stylistic influence. The ground floor was home to Montgomery Wards, part of the rapid commercial development of downtown between 1920 and 1945, where its location was prominent in the central business district. On two adjacent corners were Steinfeld's department store and the Pioneer Hotel. During this period, until the opening of Elkhorn Mall in 1960, downtown was the commercial and cultural center of Tucson life, and this intersection was at the heart of it all. Roy Place was born in San Diego on December 17, 1887. He attended San Diego public schools and graduated from Russ High School there in 1906. Following high school, he moved to Sacramento to work with Shepley, Rutten, and Coolidge, architects of Boston, Massachusetts. Later, he worked as an architect in Chicago and California. He became associated with the California State Engineering Department in Sacramento, where he was the designer and supervisory architect on several state buildings. He moved to Tucson in 1916 to work for John B. Lyman, overseeing construction of University of Arizona buildings. Roy Place formed a partnership with Lyman in Tucson in 1919, establishing the firm of Lyman and Place. It was the beginning of one of the most renowned architectural teams in the state. 5 years later, when Lyman left for San Diego, Place had established a national reputation as a respected architect. In the 1920s, Place designed some of Tucson's most iconic buildings, including the Pioneer Hotel, Pima County Courthouse, the Plaza Theater, the Veterans Administration Hospital, and many of the University of Arizona buildings east of Main Gate. The downtown buildings embraced the popular Spanish colonial revival style. The Roy Place building is a classical expression of the distinctive characteristics of the Spanish colonial revival style in an urban setting. Although similar to the Mission Revival style, with such characteristics as smooth stucco walls, tower forms, clay tile roofing, projecting eaves, and exposed rafters, Spanish Colonial Revival is more elaborate, especially with the use of decorative entry portals, colorful ceramic tile, and ornamental wrought iron. Roy Place maintained his office in the building's tower for years. By 1956, revival styles of the pre-war era were becoming passé. The building was redesigned by Terry Atkinson. The cast stone and sweet architectural details were stripped away to be replaced with a modern facade of tile and steel screens. All of the 1929 details were obscured. The extensive renovation has recast and replaced the stone details, windows, and the tile roof. Although funding limited the extent of the restoration, the Pennington facade is currently a hybrid of both eras. The building, restored by the firms of Poster Frost Murto, Odin Construction, and Sellers & Sons, was rededicated in December of 2010. The project received a preservation award from the Tucson Pima County Historical Commission in 2011. The building is now the downtown home of the University of Arizona. Next time you're downtown, take a moment and enjoy this lovely and remarkable building.
Michael Chihak is next with his Thursday night commentary.
It ain't over till it's over. As cliches go, that's a pretty useful one. It applies to many aspects of life. This week, or perhaps next, it applies to what the U.S. Supreme Court rules on Arizona's SB 1070, the law cracking down on illegal immigration. Many are predicting that the court will uphold the law, or at least significant parts of it, and just as many are saying that's the end of it. But remember the cliche, it ain't over till it's over. Even Governor Jan Brewer says so, although she predicts and hopes SB 1070 will be upheld. In practically the same breath, Brewer says she knows even if her side wins, it ain't over. That's because other lawsuits are waiting, having been held up for the last 2 years while the federal government's challenge to the Arizona law has worked its way through the courts. Here's a brief explanation. The federal challenge to SB 1070 is based on its sovereignty argument that it alone can make and enforce the laws that control immigration and foreign relations. Those issues are expected to be settled in the Supreme Court ruling. Then, a host of individual challenges to the law will come out of judicial dormancy and sprout new filings, new arguments, and surely new appeals. Those challenges rest largely on civil rights issues involving how the law will be enforced. The ACLU of Arizona is pushing for a class action suit in the case to group a large number of people who have rights violations claims or who will have such claims once enforcement begins, assuming, of course, that the Supreme Court upholds the law. But even if SB 1070 is struck down, it ain't over. One could expect the law's supporters to take other legislative action to get something into effect, maybe even a special legislative session to fix SB 1070 or come up with something completely new. In other words, while we all wait anxiously for the court's ruling, that won't be the end of it. It ain't over till it's over.
Arizona Week, Fridays at 8:30 on PBS HD Channel 6.
You can get more news and information on our website, azpm.org. To comment on any story you saw tonight, click on it online and go to the bottom. We can also be reached via Facebook and Twitter. Coming up tomorrow night on the Political Roundtable with Jim Ninsel, a new poll in the U.S. Senate race in Arizona reveals a closer race between the Republican and Democratic candidates. Newly elected Congressman Ron Barber's first vote in Washington crosses party lines on a border issue. And is a ballot initiative about a 1-penny sales tax for education in trouble? I'm Tony Paniagua from all of us at Arizona Public Media. Have a great night.